Okay, what we're going to do now, we want to proceed skinning over the tail, but the tailbone extends out into the tail, so we need to take a scissor and actually snip it. So one time we'll cut bone except up by the skull. And so to do that, we're going to take the bird and carefully just set it on the top of its breast, or kind of on its head with its tail up in the air. Then we're going to take our hand and we're going to carefully take the feathers and try to pull them out of the way so we can actually see where the hide meets the body, because we want to skin the hide around the tail, around the body, and then sever the tail and go down over the back. So right now the hide is kind of holding on here. As I pull, I can see where it still holds on, and I carefully cut on the leading edge of the body, not the hide. I don't want to cut any holes in the hide. So I use the tip of the scalpel and just kind of try to carefully get this hide to pull back a little bit further around the sides here. And then as we get back towards the tail region, and right now the tail is kind of between my thumb and my finger, as we get back towards the tail region, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to cut through, cutting through the last part of the intestinal tract, or the colon. And after we cut through that, then we are down to the muscle that is the tail of the bird. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our scissor, and just using the tips of the scissor, the tailbone comes off the back of the bird, not the front of the bird. So way back here is the tailbone. And we're going to take our scissor, and I'm just going to take it in a V shape and push it back so it's surrounding the tailbone. And before I even snip, I can move the scissor back and forth and feel that bone. And so then when I snip, I can hear it pass through the tailbone. As it cuts through that tailbone, now what I'm able to do is take my scissor and carefully kind of loosen up this meat around here in the hide, get the hide to start traveling down over the back next to the tailbone. The tailbone, where I snipped it, that piece, and you have to look careful, but right here you can actually see the bone you snipped. It's not very big around on this small teal. It's like, pencil lead size times 5. It's not very big around at all, but you can see it. I want that part to stay on the bird, so my skinning process wants to go right next to the tailbone on the other side. And once we get that severed, then we can carefully start to move the hide, keeping the thigh attached to the body. We can start moving the hide down over the back of the bird body. And some of that can be done by pushing against, not pulling the hide, but pushing the hide against the body. We need to make sure all this muscle right here stays on the body. And if you're not confident with your scalpel, use your scissor to kind of cut in between, because you're less likely to cut through the hide. So you kind of put your scissor down in there and then snip carefully to make sure your thigh muscle all stays attached to the body. We don't want the thigh muscle attached to the hide. So here, as the thigh muscle stays attached to the body and the hide rolls away, then we can take our fingers and kind of push carefully down the back. We don't have to use our scalpel or our scissors all the way. Over here we have thigh muscle still attached to the hide. You can see it there, so I take my scissor, reach underneath, and make sure that I can get rid of that, and that thigh muscle will stay attached to the body, and the skin starts moving down over the back of the bird. And I'm really just pushing. I'm not pulling. You don't want to grab the hide and pull. You might tear it. I'm just pushing right next to the muscles on the back to get the hide to just slide down away from the rear part of the bird towards the wings and the neck. And so as we keep going, we go down until we can almost feel or see the neck of the bird. Being careful, the wings are going to hold the hide up, and they're going to stop and be attached to the wings. And we'll have to remove that a little bit later. But we push down until we're almost down where the neck seems to attach. And then what we need to do, especially on ducks, we made this nice incision on the front, and we said we don't want to tear that. So at this point, to skin further, we're going to have to be really careful to come out to the front of the bird and skin down the breast of the bird without making that incision torn. And to do that, you have to be careful. So I take my hand and push the feathers away so I can actually see where the hide is. Otherwise, I don't know where I'm working. I can see the hide. I started the incision at the top of the sternum and went this way. The hide's still nice and straight, no tears in it. I take the scalpel because the hide is attached kind of tightly to the muscles, the breast muscles of the bird. So I take the scalpel and just run it carefully along the breast muscles of the bird, removing the connective tissue that seems to be holding the skin on there. And so as I go down over, I want to work this down over until it also, like the backside, is all the way down where I can see the neck. But you can see clearly there's little fibers that attach the hide to the muscles of the breast, and they don't pull off. You can't, they'll tear if you just push. You have to take your scalpel and gently just cut those individual little fibers. And when you touch them with the scalpel, then the hide just seems to fall away and continue down over the muscles of the breast. And so as you do that and get this work down further and further down the breast, and again you can see fibers connecting right here, just touch them and they let go, then we can get this down to a point without making any tear in that initial incision. We can get it down to a point where you can see the neck, and the only thing stopping us from going further are the wings. And the wings is what we'll do next. So we've got this all skinned down far enough to go ahead and proceed to the wings.